Oh, back in 1863, after President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation to end slavery, the U.S. was thrown into a brutal civil war between the Union and Confederate forces. With so many men off fighting, the southern states were left unguarded, forcing women to defend their homes from rogue Union soldiers who were terrorizing civilians with violent crimes like murder, arson, and assault. In South Carolina, two of these rogue soldiers, Henry and Moses, were on a rampage, looting and destroying everything in their path. After attacking a woman, they ruthlessly ended her life and left nothing but fire and destruction behind them. Meanwhile, the story shifts to Augusta and her younger sister, Louise, who are trying to survive alone in a remote farmhouse after their parents died in battle. They live with Mad, an older woman who was once enslaved but is now free. She stays with them, looking after the girls like family, even though Louise still struggles to accept her as an equal. Augusta constantly reminds Louise that Mad isn't a servant anymore, but a free person who deserves respect. One morning, Augusta calls Louise to help harvest potatoes, but Louise refuses, getting upset at the idea of working alongside Mad, annoyed by Augusta's insistence. She storms off. Later that day, in another part of the movie, a black man on horseback is seen riding south, but he quickly hides when he spots two Union soldiers approaching. The fear and chaos of the war are everywhere. The next day, Augusta is back at work on the farm when she suddenly hears Louise screaming for help from the woods. Without wasting a second, she grabs her gun and rushes toward the sound with Mad by her side. When they reach her, they find Louise on the ground, bleeding from a venomous snake bite. Panic sets in as Augusta lifts her sister and races back home. Terrified as Louise's fever spikes and her skin turns dangerously red. With no medicine on hand, their only option is to seek help from a neighbor. Augusta saddles up her horse and rides off in search of aid. When she reaches the closest homestead, she calls out, but there's no response. Stepping inside, she's met with a disturbing sight: a woman's lifeless body slumped in a chair, an empty poison bottle in her hand. It's clear she had lost all hope and ended her own life. With no help there, Augusta pushes on, heading toward Caleb, an old friend of her father who lives miles away. After riding all day, she finally reaches Caleb's house. As she ties up her exhausted horse, she notices a black dog sitting outside, which only adds to her unease. Ignoring her nerves, she steps inside, only for Caleb to urgently whisper that she shouldn't have come. Before she can ask why, she sees them. Two Union soldiers, the very ones known for merciless killings in the South. Desperation takes over as she explains that she's only there to save her sister. Caleb immediately tells his wife, Molly, to gather any medicinal herbs that might help. But with her horse too tired to make the trip back, they need a backup plan. Molly suggests something bold. Augusta should steal the captain's horse. The only way to pull it off? Climb upstairs, jump through a window, and make a run for it. Molly, acting quickly, distracts Henry by sitting on his lap, while Augusta moves silently. But Moses spots her heading toward the door and starts following. By the time he gets there, she's already slipped through the window. Henry, alerted by the dog barking outside, shoves Molly aside, but she bites his lip in self-defense. Furious, he strikes her down and rushes outside, only to freeze in shock when he sees Moses held at gunpoint. Augusta stands firm, rifle aimed directly at them, warning she won't hesitate to shoot if they try anything. Caleb urges her to leave while she can, so she secures the stolen horse and takes off, riding as fast as she can to save Louise. Behind her, Henry and Moses exchange uneasy glances, while Caleb and Molly stand silently, unsure of what will happen next. As Augusta pushes forward, gunshots ring out in the distance, but she doesn't slow down. Finally, after a grueling journey, she reaches the farmhouse. Exhausted but hopeful, she rushes inside where Mad is anxiously waiting. Seeing that Louise is still alive, she breathes a sigh of relief and gets straight to work, carefully applying the medicine to Louise's wounds. As night falls, Augusta sits beside her sister, telling her a story to lull her to sleep. But worry lingers. Louise's fever is still dangerously high, and her skin is flushed a deep red. Meanwhile, Henry and Moses are on the move, determined to track Augusta down. As they search, Moses spots a torn piece of her clothing caught in the bushes, reigniting their chase. Back at the farmhouse, Augusta and Mad share a quiet conversation about the past. Mad opens up about her painful experiences, recalling how she and her husband were forced to work in different homes, only to be separated when a new master took over. Despite everything, she still holds on to the hope that one day she'll be reunited with him now that slavery has ended. Their conversation is interrupted when Louise stirs, weak but awake, asking for something to eat. This simple request fills Augusta and Mad with a renewed sense of hope for Louise's recovery. Feeling a bit lighter, they start preparing some potato soup for her, singing as they work. Meanwhile, at Caleb's place, a lone rider arrives only to witness a horrifying scene. Everyone slaughtered, no one left to save, and even the horse barely clinging to life. Later that night, Augusta is suddenly woken up by eerie cries coming from outside. She quickly wakes up Mad, grabs her rifle, and the two step into the darkness to investigate. Their worst fears are confirmed when they find a black dog feasting on their sheep. Wasting no time, Augusta lifts her gun and takes it down. But then, a voice calls out for the dog from the woods, sending shivers down their spines. Without hesitation, they rush back inside, bolt the doors, and wake Louisa. Knowing they're in real danger, Augusta opens their father's safe to grab more ammunition. Mad tries to stop her from going outside alone, but Augusta argues that staying locked up won't keep them safe for long. The enemy will come crashing in no matter what. Using the stairs for a tactical advantage, Augusta gets into position just as the enemy soldiers start shooting. The bullets barely miss her, and she immediately fires back. Realizing they can't get a clear shot, the intruders resort to tossing Molotov cocktails, setting the house ablaze. Augusta frantically tears off her dress to smother the flames, but the fire is spreading too fast. The attackers are getting closer. She quickly takes out one of them before he can break through the window and then hurries back to Mad, teaching her how to load and shoot the gun. Slipping into her father's boots, Augusta instructs Mad to shoot anyone who tries to come in. No hesitation. Then, she dashes outside, hoping to lure the intruders away. She knows every inch of the land and plans to use it to her advantage. Meanwhile, Henry forcefully barges into the house, kicking down a locked bedroom door with ease. Mad freezes, too terrified to pull the trigger. In a brutal assault, Henry snatches the gun from her, strikes her across the face, and knocks her unconscious, leaving Louisa defenseless. Louisa tries to run, but Henry overpowers her, throwing her onto the bed. He assaults her with horrifying cruelty. Once finished, he points his gun at her head, prepared to end her life, until Mad regains consciousness and, with all her remaining strength, shoots him from behind, killing him instantly. Outside, Moses tries to manipulate Louisa with sweet words, pretending he means no harm. He sets down his weapon and urges her to come out, promising safety. But Augusta, refusing to fall for his lies, unleashes a storm of bullets on him. In the chaos, she takes a hit but manages to push forward. Mad rushes to help Louisa, comforting her after the traumatic ordeal. A little while later, Moses, though wounded, manages to get up and staggers toward Augusta, who's bleeding out in the field. Summoning her last ounce of strength, she swings her gun at him, knocking him down. She scrambles back inside, where Mad quickly tends to her wound, using alcohol to clean it and wrapping it tightly. As they take a moment to breathe, Mad shares the horrors of her past, how her last master repeatedly violated her, and how no one came to help, no matter how loudly she screamed. But before they can fully process the conversation, footsteps outside bring them back to reality. Augusta and Mad get ready for another fight. However, to Mad's shock, the figure stepping forward is her long-lost husband. For a brief moment, she is overwhelmed with emotion. But the reunion takes a devastating turn when Augusta, acting on pure instinct, accidentally shoots him. Mad rushes to his side, cradling him as he gasps his final breaths, expressing how much he missed her. Tears stream down her face as she kisses him one last time before he slips away. Overcome with guilt, Augusta is ashamed of what she's done. Unable to even look at Mad seeking some air, she steps outside, only to realize that one of the soldiers she shot is no longer lying where she left him. He's still alive and on the loose. Rushing back in, she apologizes to Mad for her terrible mistake and warns them that danger is still lurking. They have to track him down before he comes back to finish the job. Armed and determined, the three women set off into the woods, following the trail of blood. They find Moses waiting in the stable, armed and ready. Instead of fighting, he tries to convince Augusta to let him go, saying his life is worthless now that the war is nearly over. In a desperate twist, he even professes his love for her, placing his gun on the table and asking her to marry him so they can start over. But Augusta is filled with nothing but hatred for the men who took everything from her. Without a second thought, she shoots him dead. Once the last threat is eliminated, Augusta, Louisa, and Mad get to work burying the bodies. As they do, Mad notices smoke rising from distant villages, signaling that the Union Army is burning everything in its path. With their home no longer safe, Louisa suggests a drastic plan. They will dig up the buried bodies, disguise themselves as men, and flee to another state where no one will recognize them. With their escape set in motion, they burn their father's belongings and slip away into the night, just in time to avoid capture. Their future remains uncertain, but as they disappear into the unknown, one thing is clear: they are survivors. Thanks for watching. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more movie recaps. Until next time, take care.